Our Justice Minister, David Lammy, who has called for reparations against whites in Britain for the sin of slavery, is about to abolish jury trials. He is about to remove jury trials in the country that gave the world, including our wonderful cousins across the pond, the presumption of innocence, Blackstone's formulation, and Magna Carta and common law. This tin pot anti-white racist is running our government alongside Keir Starmer and is about to abolish the ancient customs and liberties of Englishmen while letting migrant criminals get off scot-free.
Connor, rage bait as it may be, he's not totally wrong, and you're experiencing it in your country, aren't you?
Sadly so, Jesse. I mean, far from me to agree with Wajahat Ali in the present, but the mistake was, and he's right, letting them in the first place, because as much as this might be hyperbole, it would never occur to you or me, were we a guest in someone else's country, to speak in such terms, in such derisive terms, about the people of that country, at whose expense we are largely living. And make no mistake, Wajahat Ali is living at our expense because he has made a lucrative career until fairly recently when the New York Times doesn't want to publish him, writing anti-white hit pieces and talking about just how much better Muslims are than Christians in the United States, so pork-barreling a living off the back of insulting the identity and faith of heritage Americans and those of founding stock. And I tell you what, the Founding Fathers would not recognize him as one of your countrymen. And back in 2019, he was giving puff piece interviews to Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, saying that it is completely unfounded to say that Muslims across the world don't like America. Well, I tell you what, Wajah, if I would have gone back in time and shown you this, turns out Muslims like yourself probably don't like America all that much by the sounds of it, especially when, again, in 2019, he blamed all people who have said that Islam might be incompatible with the United States for the Christchurch massacre in New Zealand at the time. So he is yet again demonstrating his willingness to attribute collective guilt and collective derision to white people despite sharing a country with them. As for the Pakistanis that share a country with me, Jesse, as you've pointed out, the Pakistani rape gang scandal is ongoing, still in Britain. Despite being amplified back in January, the Labour government still hasn't appointed the head of the inquiry that they were dragged kicking and screaming to committing to. 5 survivors have resigned from the panel, calling for the minister in charge, Jess Phillips, to resign. But Keir Starmer has said he retains confidence in Jess Phillips, despite her spending more time complaining about Elon Musk insulting her than on the inquiry itself. And advisors on the inquiry panel talked down to the survivors and told them, don't blame brown men for the abuse you suffered as a child, despite the gangs being overwhelmingly family and drug gang networks of Pakistani men with some other Muslims involved, abusing white non-Muslim girls because explicitly they were white, because they were not Muslim. The family members of the predators justified it because they didn't want to be seen as, quote, siding with the white enemy, and they blamed the girls because they dressed immodestly by Muslim standards, and as one perpetrator said in a transcript that's now been read out in Parliament, they were here to, quote, F white girls and F the government. That rhetoric sounds a hell of a lot like the sentiment that Ali was displaying there, just in more vindictive, vile, and violent fashion over in my country.
Connor, President Trump has started talking about something called remigration. Can you explain what that is, and can it potentially save places like not just America, the UK, which I would really love to see the UK turned around and saved? Can it save us? What is it?
Well, as would I, Jesse, and I'm very appreciative of your State Department as well as President Trump for sounding off on this issue. Remigration, if you go to Wikipedia, you would assume that it is a form of ethnic cleansing by white Europeans of minorities in their countries. So one would then have to ask, why was it not ethnic cleansing when unwanted immigrants came into our countries and pushed us out of our ancestral homelands, including London, which is now minority English. We don't actually know the share of English people living in London, but according to Piers Morgan, that's all totally fine, so he can eat his authentic curry. I don't think the food was worth all the rapes. Remigration simply means, in its most fair definition, the reversal of mass migration and unwanted demographic change by returning people, whether they arrived illegally or legally who are not wanted in the country to their nation of origin. And by that process, restoring sovereignty over the host nation to the indigenous population, reversing a kind of vindictive ethnic cleansing, the type that Ali, in the previous clip, seems to gloat about using migration to do. He sees migration as a form of demographic warfare on behalf of his co-ethnics. Well, I don't like losing a war, thank you very much, so we will opt for remigration to secure the security of our people instead. And so President Trump has said he is going to pursue a policy of reverse migration, remigration, for at least 19 of the countries listed on his travel ban list, stated earlier in the year. I would think he should add Pakistan and India to that list too, because they are third world countries. They exert a lot of ethno-narcissistic leverage over your domestic politics with the H-1B issue or Mr. Ali's presence in your country, and you can always leverage military aid that has been restarted to Pakistan after the aid ban earlier in the year in order to do that. But also the State Department has said, and officials have gone on record and said, the era of mass migration must end for Canada, the UK, the US, Europe, New Zealand, and Australia. And they sent out communiques to both their embassies and to the heads of governments in these countries to say, embassies, you need to start monitoring migrant crime, anti-white DEI policies, white flight, and consider all of these as human rights violations, but also to the governments like Keir Starmer, who is very sore about accusations of two-tier justice, you need to stop unduly penalising the speech of your native population whenever they have a negative characterisation of immigrant groups brought into their country at their expense against their wishes, while allowing immigrants who commit violent crimes to go free. And that's particularly pertinent at the moment because the State Department should be aware that our Justice Minister, David Lammy, who has called for reparations against whites in Britain for the sin of slavery, is about to abolish jury trials. He is about to remove jury trials in the country that gave the world, including our wonderful cousins across the pond, the presumption of innocence, Blackstone's formulation, and Magna Carta and common law. This tin pot anti-white racist is running our government alongside Keir Starmer and is about to abolish the ancient customs and liberties of Englishmen while letting migrant criminals get off scot-free. It is unacceptable, and I'm very thankful that President Trump and the State Department are pushing for this in your nation and mine, because it sure as hell isn't coming from our government.
Connor, you hang in there over there, my brother. I'm wishing you the best as always. Wonderful.